to the Redskin. Go, Redskin.
What's good, people? And I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about football this week on Rated R Radio. And it's been kind of hard to do that this week because there's been nothing but drama. And I'm certain that about 85 to 90% of our fan base actually doesn't care about this next game coming up. So I'll be honest with you, I'm just going to keep this show sort of short, but I want to touch on some bases, on some topics. And I want to give my opinions on a couple things, and I want to look over a few numbers from a few situations on that Titans game, which I'll start by saying that Adrian Peterson threw down another 100-yard rushing performance, oldest running back since John Riggins to run for 1,000 yards. I mean, the guy has really been the shot in the arm this year that has kept our team from being like a 3-13 team with all these injuries. And I realize a lot of people are going to say that the line pushed him to a certain portion of that, and I agree. But he has been unreal. A big question in the offseason is going to be, do we re-sign him, and for how long if we do? Do we try to make him retire a Redskin? Do we pay him a lot? I mean, my opinion, I think he might give us a hometown discount, being that we were the only team in the NFL that actually was interested in him. It's easy to see that he's laying down roots in the surrounding community. In my opinion, I think it feels like a good thing to do to bring him back. I mean, just think about it for a second. If you had him, Chris Thompson, and Darius Geis in the same backfield together, I realized then you got Robert Kelly coming back next year, and Byron Marshall. I mean, it's a loaded backfield. Maybe they draft another guy. Running the ball needs to be obviously the number one thing they think about with the backfield like that. No questions with Alex Smith. You got to think in the back of your mind, we might end up being nothing but a running team. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Still thinking maybe we might go after a rookie quarterback in this draft, even though this draft is light. We might be forced. I just don't want them to use an upper pick. If we pick up top, I'm not even certain what I want yet. So it might even be either a left guard or a wide receiver. A cornerback is the thought. Safety. We got some needs right now. Maybe even to think of maybe a linebacker, depending on what we do with Preston Smith. Who knows yet? An edge rusher? I don't want to have to go through that edge rusher thing again. So maybe they tag Preston Smith. I don't know. Got to think they're going to sign one and tag the other when it comes to Jamison Crowder and Preston Smith. And you got to pay, I believe still got to pay Brandon Sheriff. So, I mean, there's no way that you can't pay Sheriff. He's one of the backbones on the line now. It's a thought in the back of my head. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the offseason about it, but I think that they need to approach Trent Williams about a restructure at this point. Trent's making a lot of money. A lot of people are screaming that Josh Norman needs to be moved. I'm not certain if they could really get anybody to bite on Josh Norman at $17 million. I'm really not. What we need to do is find a time when we can cut him without a whole lot of dead hit. And I don't really know if that's going to be this next year. Josh is Josh. He's going to bring what he brings. I don't think his play necessarily hurts the team, but I could see where everybody looks at his numbers and thinks he's not doing anything. A lot of times teams don't throw at him. Now, they did start tossing his way a couple times this year. He got a couple picks too. Anyhow, this Titans game seems like decades ago, doesn't it? It's just been a really long few days. And I want to stop and say, I hope everybody had a good holiday. But wow, what a couple days, right? Feels like we're knee-deep in the offseason right now. The Titans game, we were up in this game until that first interception, and then, the wheels just fell off. At first, I thought maybe Josh Doctson had ran the route wrong, because if you watch the play again, it looks like Doctson is just in left field somewhere. But Gruden came on after the game and said that the fault was on Josh Johnson. Looking at the numbers, I mean, I thought Derrick Henry would do well if he ran the ball over 20 times against us. I mean, he didn't break the 100-yard mark. That actually surprised me. We did pretty well against him in the first 3 quarters. Or the first half, I should say. Adrian Peterson, he did well. In my opinion, where we were flawed at in this game is instead of throwing the ball, I felt like they should have been running the RPO a little bit more and moving Johnson out of the pocket perhaps and running the ball with him. He only carried the ball 4 times. And I get it that Tennessee maybe, plays a little bit of defense where they can tuck the ends, make things a little difficult. But there were times where he could have done more running the ball. And you could tell that they were trying to shape the play for him to throw it. Now, I get it that he was, at that point, was playing pretty cool-handed. And things in his brain were probably moving pretty slow at that point, meaning that he had adjusted well. But football is a game where you got to roll with the punches. Things happen in a second. And they happened in a couple seconds for him, and tick, and it was over with, and he threw that pick. And I feel like the team played 3 good quarters of football and then just let it go at the end. Now, one interesting note that you might want to take a look at, the game was a 9.5-point spread. I saw it at 10 some places, okay? But if anybody noticed, after the pick 6 at the end to end the game, they gave them the 6 points, but they didn't make them kick the extra point. So, in essence, the Redskins covered the spread. People at Vegas lost money. People lost money on that game. And I'm certain that somewhere somebody was not very happy about it. I'm just going to leave it at that, but that's a little odd to me that they don't make them kick the field goal. Generally, they always make them kick the field goal. Came in the play on a score. Remember, you got to kick the field goal. What are you going to do, right? Josh Norman and Taylor Lewan sideline scuffle, that video is on this channel. If anybody wants to go over there and join that discussion, I've heard both sides of that story, and it appears like Lewan was acting kind of crummy, whatever adjective you want to use. Josh acted like a pit bull and responded. I mean, what are you going to do? The guy's fiery, man. You mess with him. He did a little bow and arrow thing at him, and Josh responded. I mean, that's just the way it is, man. I mean, Lewan's like 6'5", 320. And the way I saw it was Josh didn't even have a helmet on it and went at him, and oh boy, made sure he got off the sideline and got away from him. That's the way I looked at it. It looked like he was a little scared, in my opinion, but whatever, I think maybe he was just trying to taunt a little. It didn't work. He called him on his bluff. It's like, the bully, once he gets hit back, he doesn't do anything. He walks away with his head hung. If Josh would have wanted to swing, he'd have swung at a guy. They wouldn't have swung back probably because he's probably scared. Let's just be honest. When you're on the football field and you can drop your shoulder, that's a little different than when somebody's up in your face ready to square off. It's just the truth. Now, let's keep it football. Plenty of drama this week surrounding this football team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Looking at the injury department, I'm going to tell you, this team is just beat up. We added 2 more today. That makes 23 on the year, which matches the total from last year on IR. Because we added Jordan Reed and Colt McCoy. Now, the elephant in the room was Colt McCoy should have been on IR weeks ago. But whatever. Ryan Anderson was limited. Maurice Harris was limited. This is a good thing, okay? Tony Bergstrom, Vernon Davis, Zach Kieran, they were all limited. Those are all good things. Matt Ioannidis, Ty Nsekhe did not practice. That's a bad thing. Josh Doctson did not practice. Doctson got us. I'm going to make a video here within a couple weeks talking about Doctson because there's a lot of question marks with Doctson right now. Is he displayed enough to where they pick up his final year option, or do they let him go? That's really a question you got to start thinking about. But, injury department, like it has been all year long, is going to be a depressing subject. And I laugh because inside I'm just like sobbing away because this team is depressing, okay? It's not just you as a fan listening or maybe like an opposing fan that's thinking it. It's me as I'm actually sitting here talking to you. And trust me, I am just as frustrated as frustration can get you. But I'm going to let you know the season's almost over. And we're almost at the finish line. This year, obviously, we are not making the playoffs, and that takes the wind out of our sail. Makes you not want to care about this last football game. I get that. Even if we're playing the Eagles, and even if we could kill their season. But, we got to, as fans, we got to stick to whatever we believe is right. Some people, they want to, not watch the games, not go to the games. That's on them. That's what they feel is right. Me, it's just in my bloodline. I'm not really caring what the front office does when it's Sunday and it's 1 o'clock. If I got to chase the stream online, I'm gonna be trying to watch the Redskins game. Now, I will tell you for the last 2 seasons that I haven't been to a Redskin game, nor have I bought anything Redskins related. And it goes a little bit further back than that when it comes to jerseys. I think it's maybe about 6 years now since I bought my last jersey, and that was a Sean Taylor jersey. And I would buy another Sean Taylor jersey, but that's because I love Sean Taylor. But at the same time, I don't want to stick my hands in anything to do with the NFL's pocket at this point. Things must change for me at this point. You see, a lot of people look at Daniel Snyder and they want Daniel Snyder's head on a platter. Me personally, I'm not like that. To be honest with you, I know Danny's made a lot of mistakes, and he is the focus of a lot of people's anger. But at the end of the day, if we boycott going to the games fully to try to hurt him, it's not going to hurt him because the NFL shares revenue, okay? So all of the shared revenue that they get from merchandising, ticket sales, and whatnot, it all goes into a big pool, and they separate it. Okay, now there's only one team that's opposite of anybody in merchandising, and that's the Cowboys. Everything else is pooled, and everybody earns from that pool. And folks, let me tell you, the numbers are in the hundreds of millions or in the billions that they make off the shared revenue, and that's not even talking the TV contract. Doesn't matter if you go or not. Now the question will be, will the league ever intervene? That may actually happen. Now, I've seen a couple of people think maybe that the league was already intervening with these last 4 guys that we had, in there that he fired essentially yesterday. The interesting thing about that is there hasn't been any press release announcing those 4 names. The only thing that we've got was Craig Hoffman, and I believe then the Richmond Times-Dispatch confirming the report. So you really have to ask yourself, why is it the Redskins haven't come forward and told everybody about this firing? That's where you got to be on that circumstance. And if you don't see that that's an issue, then you should probably start paying attention, because it's a problem. A lot of people end up looking past the problem because they're caught up on Danny. And the problem with that is that Danny owns the team, and there's no ousting the owner. That doesn't happen. Now, you can hope for them to get rid of Bruce Allen, and that would be a start in the right direction of trying to clean things up, because they have people in-house to do it. Everybody knows that the guys that we need to be running things are right there behind Bruce. I don't think anybody is clueless to this fact, but if you are, all you have to do is look back in a couple of the episodes, episode 1 and 2, and then I believe the rant that I made about which way do we go now. you should definitely look back into those archives and see what I've said before. Kyle Smith should be our GM at this point anyway. I hate what they're doing with Doug Williams. They're throwing Doug out to the wolves whenever they throw him out there to talk. Thankfully, they haven't been throwing him out there to talk anymore recently, because I feel like they've degraded him at this point. They know we love Doug. They cheapen him by throwing him out there, though, to read little one-liners that Bruce writes. You know, if that's going to happen, then we need to have Kyle Smith come in and do that. Let Doug do his job. Doug is there to judge player personnel, not be a PR rep. That's one thing I have a problem with this team with at this point right now. You know, I'm not going to jump up and down and scream that the owner needs to go, but I will say I don't like the way that things are done here. Like, why are we hearing from Jay Gruden 75 to 85% of the time whenever this organization speaks? Why is that happening? Why is it we don't see our GM? Who is our GM? I mean, I guess essentially they're saying Doug Williams is our GM. I don't believe that. I believe the person at the end of the tunnel is Bruce Allen, and he doesn't get marched out to talk at any point. So we never see any executives come out and speak when something big happens. We always end up with Jay Gruden at the mic. And I'm not certain that the Redskins understand as an organization that if you want to give him a shot as a coach, that's one thing, but being the face of your organization, it doesn't speak well for you. The optics on it are not that great. I mean, Jay's a cool dude, but I wouldn't want him to be the face of my organization. He could be the coach. The face of the organization needs to be your president or your best players or your owner. Thankfully, in other people's situations, they all find somebody else besides the owner most of the time to step up in that kind of position. The bad teams end up with the owner being the figurehead, and that's obviously what's happened in D.C. I wish that could change, but the reality is it probably never will. And I think a lot of Redskin fans are probably tired of the status quo. I was asked a few times on the last 3 or 4 videos I put out, like, you know, why do Redskin fans react so overwhelmingly, like jumping off the cliff, so to speak? And I'm trying to tell everybody, man, it's because they're fed up. They don't want to keep paying the price they're paying to go to games and then feel like, you know, the GM or the owner or the team president doesn't care about them. That's what the way they feel. And opinions are one thing. And I know that this one isn't completely split, but it is divided a little, you know, and everybody's got the right to their own opinion. So I'm not saying that anybody's right or wrong in this situation. What I'm trying to tell everybody is we can't change owners. There's no way that can happen. Even if we had $10 billion to buy the team right now, because that would be an overwhelming bid. I mean, he'd be stupid not to take it. But he's not going to take it. It's not something he's wanting to get rid of. Most people are going to have to wait it out. The problem is, once they wait it out, you know, there may not be any fans left of this team, because the fan base is slowly but surely dying off. And that's a bad thing for the Redskins, because the younger crowd is going to be taught that the name is disparaging, or that, you know, that the Redskins are ran horrible. Oh, why would you be a Redskin fan? You know, even Redskin fans who are, you know, under the age of 30 now, they never felt any glory beyond winning an NFC East crown. I feel bad for them. I mean, what could you say when they tell you that, how do I stay a fan? What do you say to that? You know, it makes it hard for you to respond to people when they say those kind of things. You know, it's just food for thought right there, but, you know, it really is. Sometimes you have to stop yourself and just wonder why this organization can't run like it should. And you have to look past the part that you don't like the owner. And I could tell you stories about how, you know, my grandpa and my uncles used to sit on Sunday afternoon and talk about football around the table after we went to church. And they used to always say that Jack can't cook should go back to basketball. He didn't know what he was doing. He'll never have a winner. That's what they were saying in 1988, 1981, even early parts of 1982 until we started winning, you know. And then in the 1980s, mid-80s to late 80s, of course, Jack Kent Cooke could do no wrong. Before that, Jack Kent Cooke was the heel of the town. Everybody thought that he was in the wrong place, the wrong sport. He needed to go back to basketball, blah, 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 blah. It's pretty much common known history for people that were around in those days. But, you know, winning cures all. And if this team started winning next year, everybody would forget about Danny and his issues. But I'm going to tell you right now, nobody would forget about Bruce Allen. And that's because they feel like he's been involved in too many bad situations. You know, most of the time as an employee, when you hit the fourth or fifth strike, you know, you end up getting a different job elsewhere. And that's what's happened here. And I guess him and Danny are really good friends. And, you know, I partake it to being like part of the old boys network, because that's pretty much what's going on here. And I get that. It's Tampa Bay guys left and right inside of our front office now. All the coaches are tied to Tampa Bay, tied to the Grudens, tied to the Allen name, you know, as he was in Oakland or in Tampa. And, you know, I'm kind of ready for a fresh slate. It has nothing to do with Allen personally. It's just time for a new slate. If they're going to fire business guys who have something to do with only ticket sales and fan feelings, then what in the hell is going on over here? Do they really think that's what the problem is? Do they really think those are the people that need to go? Because it appears like maybe the 4 people that got fired got fired for speaking up and giving their opinions. Maybe they were giving their opinions that somebody else should go, or maybe they were just going to go themselves. Maybe that's what it was. And then they got shown the door before they got a chance to step down. Thinking it might have been the latter of the two, but there's a good chance it's either one. And we'll never know the answer to that. The interesting part, in my opinion, is that the team has still yet to release any information. I saw that it was pointed out yesterday, I believe by 106.7, that they have been removed off the team's website. So it has happened. It's just the Redskins aren't talking about it publicly. Now, the Redskins signed, you know, a small list of people to the practice squad and 1 or 2 to the regular roster. You know, I don't even know if it's really that much of a ordeal to want to even list it, but I'll go ahead and throw it up on the screen. You know, I don't really see a name here of anybody that's really going to be doing a lot of playing time. I know that Flowers was added for special teams reasoning. My guess is because they have to move somebody up to play Swearinger's spot. I am not going to touch on Swearinger anymore on this channel, but I will direct everybody to the conversation that I talked about him before. I don't know if YouTube will allow me to put a link up right here on the screen or not, but if they do, I'm going to put it right here. Everybody can go there and check out that video. And since that time, the only thing that really, in my opinion, has in my brain has really settled around is the fact that the team didn't suspend the guy, and that's weird to me. You know, they said that this is the 3rd time that it happened, which I understand. You can't take a player talking bad about the team like that. I get that. That's definitely something that cannot be taken. People should not be allowed to ever talk to their employer like that. And I actually think that after this went on, hearing him in his conversations after he signed with Arizona, that I think that he got that. So my point is why wasn't he just suspended, let's say after the 2nd time he did it this year? My thought is the reason why they didn't suspend him is because he was playing good and we were still in contention for the playoffs. But if that be the case, then why didn't we just suspend him after the game last week? And obviously no fan has an answer there, and the organization hasn't touched it. But to see the three teams that were interested in him when he was cut, the Cardinals, the Raiders, and the Packers, and that tells you right there that John Gruden was interested. And John Gruden was interested. You really think that Jay Gruden doesn't like him, or that Jay Gruden really cut him, and then John Gruden, put in a waiver claim for him? Something's rotten in Denmark there. I don't think so. I think John probably got on the phone and called Jay and said, "What do you think?" And Jay probably said, "Hey, the Redskins, the front office here just don't like the guy." I don't think it's it's any big secret to anybody that if Gruden doesn't make it in D.C., that he'll go out there with his brother, in Vegas or wherever they end up next year playing for a year. I don't think anybody would be shocked by hearing that. The firing of the four executives just, to me, shows that upper management is basically not willing to change the ways that things have been, because those four guys were brought in to do exactly what the fans wanted, which was make the experience better and to be a little bit more transparent. And they were immediately. And of course now they don't have a job. It's just weird. I mean, you bring in people to reconstruct what you're doing, and then you let go of them less than 8 months or 9 months later. It's just odd. Normally on this show, I'm going to do film review at this point right now, and then in the off season, I'm definitely going to put film review together, even if it's just showing, sacks from certain players and whatnot. But for now, with the way that everything's been going, I'm leaving film review out again this week. It's just not worth anybody's time or effort. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Eagles game, even though I know most people's mind is elsewhere right now. Since we're eliminated from the playoffs, we really have nothing to play for here except for spoiling the season of one of our rivals. And of course, nothing better to spoil the season after a Super Bowl run for them when they're trying to get in this, the playoffs and Super Bowl again. If you got anything left to football, it's this rivalry might be able to bring it out of you at least inside of one game, knowing that you have no future. Shutting this team out and shutting out their fans for the year would maybe make you feel better than, here you go, this game right here is for you. But the Skins already have 23 people on IR this year, and a lot of key players are missing in this game. The way this all looks right now, they've got to find ways to put pressure on Foles and force him into making mistakes. That's really it right there, all in a nutshell. He's good at managing games. You got to take the ball out of his hands. Maybe get him. Just got to get him to turn over the ball. That's really what you got to do. And I know that a lot of people have tried that before, but in the past, Foles has just been really good at managing games. I mean, that's just the way he did it all through the playoffs last year, and he put up numbers in the process. But for the Redskins on offense, we just have to run the ball with AP and hope for the best. And when you have Josh Johnson in at quarterback, which he is going to start with this week, you just got to tell him to limit the turnovers, man. I think running the RPO a little bit more might actually be better with him at quarterback for now. Maybe until he gets to the speed of the game, slows back down again for him. For us, it's really a chance to take a look at a few younger players. As I said before, play spoiler. I don't expect to see many Redskin fans in the seats. I expect the Eagle fans to take over the stadium. I fully expect that. I know you probably have some diehards in the stands, and I get that. If I lived in D.C. and I had tickets, I would definitely probably still go. But I'm actually glad to kind of see this drama-filled, injury-plagued season wrap up, And, of course, next week we'll have our end-of-season wrap-up edition where we sit down and look at what worked and what didn't work and what caused us to miss the playoffs. If we could roll it up into one, I can tell you that I'm leaning already towards the Alex Smith injury. And then, of course, since the Alex Smith injury, it seems like we've hit the circus. And I'm going to tell you, circus mode is something that I can't stand. And I hate it when the Redskins hit circus mode because the media just like rallies around the campfire. You know what I mean? Like, they circle it. They really look for any bits and pieces that they could run with. And us as the fans, we have to rely on them to get any information at all. So it kind of makes us the vultures, and I hate this section of time. That's why it's always good to know a couple people on the inside and maybe get a little bit more informed information. This era of fake news, it really hurts people when it comes down to their psyche and hearing things for the first time and the second time, and everything gets twisted, and before you know it, everybody thinks that it's this way and it's that way, and it actually isn't. It's best to just get it from somebody who's actually knows what they're talking about, or somebody who's connected. There's a few of us on YouTube. I mean, I'm not gonna say that there's the greatest thing as far as your national connections go, but hey, man, who's the best to tell you what's going on with your team than a fan that's been a fan for over 30 plus years? I don't have a whole lot more this week, but I really wanted to say that the new year is coming, and as the new year rolls in next year, we're going to roll out a new format, and we'll see how things go. But that's all I got. Hail to the Redskins. Peace, everybody.